The morning sun hung low over the rust-colored cliffs of Thera 7, casting long shadows across the dry plateau where Ryland Cade worked in silence. His tools buzzed softly, repairing a cracked solar relay half buried in dust. Life on the fringe. Colony was simple by design. He had left the wars behind, the ranks, the codes, the noise. Out here, he could forget. But then he saw it. A smear of something unnatural across the rocks, catching the light like spilled starlight. Iridescent, shifting between blue and violet, the substance pulsed faintly, as if alive. Ryland straightened slowly, visor dimming against the brightness as he moved closer. It wasn't paint. It wasn't oil. And it certainly wasn't human. He followed the trail, bootsteps crunching across stone. A shimmering fluid was spattered in uneven arc signs of movement. Panic, injury. His gut tightened. At the edge of the ridge, he spotted the wreckage of a small escape pod, wedged between two jagged outcrops, smoke curling lazily into the wind. A hull bore no Terran markings. Ryland's breath caught. His hand instinctively drifted to the pulse. Pistol strapped to his thigh. Something moved. He ducked low behind a boulder, scanning the wreckage. A faint, broken moan reached his ears, not mechanical alive. Against every rational impulse, he approached cautiously. The metallic scent of scorched alloy mixed with something sharper, more organic. Then he saw her. She lay half-buried beneath a twisted section of the pod's hull, her body crumpled in a pool of that strange glowing blood. Her skin shimmered like liquid mercury, silver-touched and nearly translucent where torn. Deep gashes ran across her abdomen and side, and her breathing was shallow, ragged. Her face was alien elegant, angular, crowned with faint bioluminescent markings, now flickering weakly like dying stars. V-I-R-E-L-L-I-A. Ryland froze, every nerve in his body going tight. Images flashed in his mind, burning outposts, screaming civilians. The moment a Virelian drone bomb took his sister from him. And now one of them was here, dying, vulnerable, on Terran soil. Her eyes opened, black, endless, reflective like obsidian. Pools, they locked onto his, wide with terror. She tried to speak, but only a hoarse breath came. Her hand-long fingers trembling reached toward him slightly. Don't. Her voice was no more than a whisper. Don't let them take me back. Ryland stood frozen for a heartbeat longer. He could turn away, walk back, call it in. They'd be here within the hour. Containment teams. Quick, efficient, merciless. She'd vanish, dissected or worse. And no one would question it, but her voice echoed in his head. The fear in it wasn't political. It was human. He dropped to his knees beside her. Hold on, he muttered, slipping off his pack. The nanogle would only slow the bleeding. It wasn't designed for alien physiology, but it was all he had. This is going to hurt. He tore away the shredded fabric of her suit and pressed the injector to her side. She jerked in pain, a strangled cry escaping her throat, but her eyes never left his. I'm sorry, he whispered. The glowing blood hissed against the metal frame of the pod, burning tiny holes that steamed in the cold air. He had no idea who she was, no idea what she'd done. But something inside him had shifted, something he thought he'd buried under years of silence. And he lifted her into his arms, careful but fast. She weighed less than expected light, fragile. Her head lolled against his shoulder, breath ticking faintly in and out. Behind him, the wind howled through the canyons. The signal from the pod had likely already pinned satellites. He didn't have long. But he didn't look back, because for the first time in years, Ryland Cade was doing something that felt like hope. The door to Ryland's outpost hissed open with a reluctant grind of metal, barely wide enough for him to squeeze through. while cradling her limp form. Dust swirled into the dim interior before the seal closed again, cutting off the dry wind and the rising heat of Ferris Evans' morning sun. He laid her gently on the padded bench of his work table, his fingers slick with a strange mixture of blood and sweat. Her skin shimmered faintly under the overhead lights, but the glow was weaker now. The bleeding had slowed mostly thanks to the nanogle, but some wounds still oozed, and her vitals were erratic. His field scanner, a battered relic from his time in the military, blinked red as it tried and failed to interpret her readings. Vitals. Unstable. Neural feedback loop misaligned. The voice chirped through his earpiece, clipped and synthetic. "No shit," Rylan muttered, yanking open a storage drawer. He found a thermal blanket, wrapped it around her quickly, and grabbed a G. Portable med-core. He hesitated for a moment, and scanned the label on a sealed vial of Regan serum. For human use only. He stared at it, then back at her. Her silver lashes fluttered against pale cheeks. One of her fingers twitched. "Damn it." He popped the seal. The injector hissed softly as he pressed it to the side of her neck. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then she convulsed violently, her back arching off the table as her veins lit up like silver lightning. The bioluminescent markings on her face flared to life, erratic at first, then pulsing in tight, synchronized bursts. "Whoa, hey, breathe," he said, trying to hold her still. "Just breathe." She gasped suddenly, lungs filling, and then collapsed back against the table with a wheezing groan. Her eyes flickered open, dazed, searching. She looked at him, then at the room. Her voice was cracked, but there was fear. There again. Where am I?" "Safe. For now," Rylan said. "You crashed just past the ridge. I found you bleeding out." She stared at him like she was trying to see past his skin into something deeper. Her lips parted, but no. Sound came. Then she flinched, her body jolting slightly as the nanogle and human medicine continued merging inside her. He stepped back, staring at her with equal parts awe and concern. The wounds on her abdomen, they were closing. Not healing, sealing. Shut, skin smoothing over with a faint silver sheen. But it wasn't just her body. His scanner beeped erratically now, picking up strange interference. His console lights blinked, flickering as if touched by static. "What the hell?" he muttered, looking around. His comms panel sparked. Her blood, it wasn't just healing her. It was interacting with the tech. He looked back at her. Her breathing had steadied. Her eyes were still open, watching him. "What are you?" he asked quietly. She blinked. "I'm not supposed to be here," she said. "They'll come for me. They always do." Rylan knelt beside her, resting one hand gently on her shoulder. "Who's they?" Her lips trembled. "The Varelian Accord. My own people. I escaped. I stole something. Or maybe I am the thing. I don't know anymore." He froze. The weight of her words settled in, like a stone dropped in a still pond. "They'll kill you for helping me," she said, almost as a warning. "I figured that out already," Rylan replied, his voice low. Her eyes brimmed with something that looked like sadness and gratitude. "I'm Rylan," he offered softly. She hesitated, then whispered, "Sirenia." Her name lingered in the quiet. In the next moment, something outside beeped sharply. Long-range sensors, picking up movement. Near the outer ridge, Rylan turned toward the window, a knot forming in his gut. He had already crossed a line by bringing her here. Now they were both on borrowed time, and someone was coming. The long-range proximity alarm pulsed again low, insistent and cold. Rylan muted it with a swipe of his hand, already moving to the dusty window slats near the back of the outpost. From this angle, the ridge lines blurred into the heat shimmer, but a black dot crawled against the horizon. Too fast for wildlife. Too slow for mining drones. Someone was scouting. He cursed under his breath and turned back to the table. Serenia sat upright now, her expression tense, pale fingers gripping the edge of the bench. Her eyes those deep. Swirling mirrors were locked onto the scanner's alert lights. "They found me," she said. "You sure?" She didn't answer with words. Instead, she reached out, touching the metal of the med scanner. The machine flickered, hummed, then shifted, displaying a complex Varelian code on the screen. Ryland stared at the foreign symbols until they reassembled into Terran script. Tracking signal detected. Origin: High Orbit Recon Probe, Varelian designation. Dren class. Estimated arrival: 0 hours 46 minutes and 18 seconds. What the hell? He muttered. How did you do that? Serenia withdrew her hand slowly. The screen went dark again. My blood, she said, looking down at her arms. The faint veins beneath her skin still shimmered with soft light, pulsing like distant stars. It's not just part of me. It learns, it merges. With metal, systems, sometimes even language. Ryland paced, trying to think. He'd served alongside intel officers who whispered rumors about alien biotech, like that experimental programs. Classified cases where symbiotic blood altered tech, even people. But he'd never seen it. Until now, Dachi continued. That pod? I came in. It was designed to suppress my signal. But the crash broke the dampener. They'll be here soon. Not to rescue. To silence. He looked at her, really looked, and saw the shadows in her eyes. Not just pain, not just fear, but something deeper. Something that had been hunted for a long time. What did you steal? He asked. She hesitated, visibly weighing trust. Then, slowly, she reached under the collar of her suit and pulled free a pendant, an irregular shard of crystallized data metal, humming faintly with internal light. This contains evidence, she said. Transmissions. Secret recordings. Genetic records. All of it proving the war between your people and mine wasn't an accident. It was built, designed, funded by both sides. Ryland felt his stomach twist. Why? Because peace doesn't make profit, she said softly. Conflict fuels control. He stared at the shard. She held it like it was a part of her burden, her truth, her damnation. And now it was his too. How many know? He asked. Just. Mm-hmm. And now? You. The silence that followed was loud, pulsing between heartbeats. A soft chime rang from the outer perimeter sensors. Incoming vehicle. One occupant. Stealth pattern. Could be a scout. Could be worse, Ryland muttered. Already? Reaching for his pistol. He turned to her. You said they'll kill you. What would they do to me? Make it look like you never existed, she answered. He nodded once, then reached beneath the floor hatch and tossed her a cloak made of scavenged thermal mesh. Get under the workbench. Stay silent. Don't come out unless I say your name. Serenia hesitated. Why are you helping me? Ryland knelt down in front of her, voice steady but low. Because when I looked into your eyes, I didn't see an enemy. I saw someone begging not to die alone. Her fingers brushed his wrist as she pulled the cloak around her. Thank you, she whispered, just before disappearing under the bench. The door buzzed once, then twice. A coded knock-dash military. Ryland stood slowly, pistol at his hip, and walked to the door. The moment his hand touched the panel, he knew. This wasn't just about hiding an alien dot. It was about choosing what kind of man he still was. Asterisk. The door opened with a slow hydraulic sigh, the midday sun pouring into the room like liquid fire. Ryland squinted, his hand resting casually on the grip of his pistol as the figure outside stepped into view. He wasn't Varelian. He was worse. The man stood tall in sleek black armor, polished but worn at the joints. His skin was tanned from years under too many suns, and his jaw carried the same cold precision as his voice. "Raylan Cade?" the stranger said, nodding slightly. "Didn't expect to find you this far out in the dust." Rylan didn't move. "You've got the drop on me, friend. Want to say who's asking? Call me Colonel Fasik Dren." He flashed a badge from under his cloak. No insignia, but the sharp angular pattern on it was unmistakably Varelian Intelligence Class A. Diplomatic override used only in high-priority field recoveries. Terran name for a Varelian badge? Rylan said, raising an eyebrow. "I work both sides." Dren replied smoothly. "And right now, I'm looking for something. Or someone." Behind Rylan, hidden under the workbench and cloaked in thermal mesh, Serenia held her breath. She could hear every word. She could feel the subtle shift in the air, how Rylan's body tensed, how his heartbeat quickened. "What kind of something?" Rylan asked, feigning boredom. Dren stepped inside, boots crunching lightly on the dusty floor. "Small vessel came down hard in this sector last night. Unregistered heat signature. We believe it was carrying stolen information. Dangerous to both your people and mine. You think I found it?" Rylan asked, locking eyes with him. "I think you're the only soul out here with working sensors and a pulse. And you're not the type to ignore a crash site." Rylan shrugged, stepping to his console. Didn't see much. Might have been a probe burned up on impact. Dren's eyes swept the room like scanners. "Mind if I take a look around?" Rylan's jaw tightened. "I do, actually." A beat of silence passed. Then Dren smiled, slow and clinical. "You always were a stubborn bastard." Rylan didn't smile back. "And you always had a way of walking into rooms where you didn't belong." For a moment, the tension was palpable. Two men standing on opposite sides of something neither fully understood, but both instinctively feared. Then, Dren's wrist console beeped. He tapped it. Base confirms the signal's close. Very close. His eyes fell to the floor, just a few feet from where Serenia was hidden. Raylan stepped between him and the bench. "I told you, there's nothing here," he said flatly. Dren studied him. Then his hand moved too fast. Raylan's pistol was up in an instant. They aimed at the same time, fingers hovering over triggers. "I really don't want to shoot you, Cade," Dren said softly. "Funny," Rylan replied. "Because I've never been more sure." A flicker of movement behind Dren. A shape. A shimmer dot, and then everything exploded. Into light. Serenia surged from beneath the bench, her cloak falling away, eyes burning like silver suns. Her hand struck Dren's console with a snap of energy static and fire, and memory sending the device shrieking into sparks. He shouted, reeling backward as a pulse of energy knocked him off his feet and across the room. "Run!" she cried to Rylan, but he didn't run. He fired. Two sharp bursts into the ceiling, shattering the control lights and plunging the outpost into chaos and smoke. He grabbed her hand, and they bolted through the rear hatch, out into the canyon. Breath ragged and boots kicking dust into the wind. Behind them, Dren screamed into his coms. They're together. Human and Varelian. Execute Order 6, they're to be terminated on sight. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs gave out. Somewhere in the maze of old mining tunnels, Rylan collapsed against a wall, dragging Serenia down beside him. His face was cut, his hands scraped, but his eyes burned with adrenaline and fury. "You didn't have to do that," he said between gasps. "I did," she replied softly, her markings glowing faintly in the dark. "You protected me. I won't let you die for me." He turned to her, staring at the strange alien beauty of her form, wounded, powerful, afraid. And something inside him, something long buried, rose to the surface. You're not just some fugitive, he said. You're something they fear. I carry the truth, Serenia whispered, voice trembling. And if it gets out, it could end everything. Rylan reached over, took her hand, and laced his fingers with hers. Then let's make damn sure. It does. And in the dark, surrounded by ancient stone and the flicker of her light, the first fragile strands of trust bound them tighter than either expected. Asterisk, the mining tunnels were cold, a kind of cold that seeped into bones and stayed there. Condensation dripped from old steel supports overhead, echoing in the quiet as Rylan adjusted a rusted door panel and waved Serenia inside. The chamber beyond was small, half-collapsed, and littered with the skeletons of old equipment. But it was dry, hidden, and for the moment safe. Serenia sat down heavily on a crate, her glowing skin dimmer now, her breath uneven. She'd spent too much energy attacking Dren's console, and the strain was showing. Still, her eyes flicked upward as Rylan activated a solar lamp and began setting up his medkit. You're hurt, he said, pulling back her sleeve. Faint burns spidered up her forearm, like veins drawn in fire. I pushed too hard, she admitted. The signal pulse, it wasn't meant for organic tissue. But I had to stop him. You did, Rylan muttered, wrapping a coolant patch around her arm. Now we've got 30 security drones sweeping the outer zone and a bounty on both our heads. He didn't look at her as he said it, but the heat in his voice was unmistakable. I didn't ask you to stay with me, she said quietly, pain flickering through her features. No, he agreed, taping the patch. You didn't. He stood and stepped back, running a hand through his sweat-matted hair. Silence hung between them, heavy, charged, unspoken. I had a sister, he said finally. Her name was Lena. She was the reason I signed up. Thought I'd protect people like her. I was wrong. Serenia tilted her head. She died in a raid. Virelians attacked a civilian shuttle convoy near the Rigel colonies. No survivors. The brass told us it was a retaliatory strike. Part of the war effort. But you didn't believe them, she said. I did, he replied. I believed every damn word until I saw your data shard. Serenia's hand moved to her neck, fingers brushing the pendant still hidden beneath her suit. Said it holds the truth? He continued. About the war, about what our governments have done. She nodded slowly. If it reaches an open relay system, it'll override network firewalls and transmit on every galactic channel. No one will be able to bury it. Asterisk Rylan stared at her for a long moment. Then we need to get it there. Her eyes widened slightly. You'd help me do that? Even after what my people did? No, he said softly. Because of what yours and mine did. Together. A long silence passed between them. Not uncomfortable this time, just full. Full of weight. Of choice. Of something building just beneath. The surface dot. Then Serenia shifted, pain flashing through her as she tried to rise. Rylan caught her instantly, hands at her waist. Their eyes locked. Neither of them moved. Asterisk, the air between them, thrummed with something neither could name. And yet, they both knew. Their contact wasn't just physical. It was something deeper now. She gasped softly, as his touch sparked a glow beneath her skin, faint pulses of silver-blue light running up her neck, her cheek like threads of living starlight. Rylan felt it, to a quiet charge humming up his spine, tingling behind his eyes. What is that? He whispered. Serenia's breath trembled. The nanits. My blood. It's not just reacting anymore. It's reaching out. To you. You? Mean we're linked? I don't know, she admitted. But I can feel you, Rylan. Your heart. Your fear. Your hope. He didn't speak. He just leaned in, forehead touching hers. Asterisk. They stayed like that for a long, breathless moment. held in the stillness of something neither understood. An intimacy not born of romance, but of survival, of shared defiance. But it didn't last. A deep rumble shook the earth beneath them. Dust fell from overhead. Then came a low-frequency thrum, mechanical, distant but unmistakable. "They found the outpost," Ryland said, grabbing his ear. "Dren won't stop this time." Serenia stood on shaky legs. "Then neither will we." They moved quickly now, exiting the tunnel and making for the surface. Above them, through cracks in the rock, the sky flashed with searchlights and the faint ripple of engine wash. "I know a place," Ryland said, checking the power on his sidearm. "An old relay tower, mostly buried, but if we can reactivate it, your shard might punch through the firewalls." "And if it doesn't?" she asked. He looked at her, a small smile tugging at his mouth. "Then we give them something to remember." The wind howled as they climbed toward the light. Two fugitives running against the tide of a war built on lies. One carrying a truth that could burn down everything. The other, just a man who dared to believe in her. And above them, unseen but growing, a dozen warships began to descend. The relay tower jutted out of the canyon wall like the broken rib of some ancient beast, half buried beneath rockfall and time. Ryland and Serenia reached it just before dawn, sweat pouring down their backs, lungs raw from the climb. The wind up here was different, colder, sharper, carrying the heavy scent of ozone and ion drive exhaust. The ships were closer now, too. Close. Ryland pried open the old service hatch with a rusted crowbar and helped Serenia crawl inside. The chamber was dark, long dormant. Coils of wiring dangled from the walls, and layers of dust coated the ancient consoles. A hollow hum vibrated underfoot, weak but alive. There was still power. "Will it work?" she asked, voice thin. Only one way to find out. He moved fast, rerouting what little juice remained through a bypass panel and into the relays. Main core. Sparks spat as aged metal whined in protest. The system flickered to life in stages, first the emergency lighting, then the mainframe. The screen blinked once, twice, then came online. "Now," Ryland said. "Your turn." Serenia stepped forward. Her skin glowed faintly, even in the low light, threads of silver blue tracing up her throat and along her arms like living tattoos. She drew the pendant from her neck, still pulsing with stored energy, and placed it against the terminal interface. Nothing happened. She frowned, pressing it harder. Still nothing. "I don't understand," she whispered, desperation creeping into her voice. "The relay should read it. This system predates most of the military encryption." Ryland stepped closer, gently touching her hand, and that was when everything changed. The pendant flared bright, blinding. Not because of the machine, but because of them. The moment their skin made contact, her body reacted. The nanits, her blood, the shard, all of it responded to the connection between them. The terminal lit up, outlines of code cascaded down the screen. Encryption locks fell like dominoes. The data surged into the network: images, files, recordings, medical archives, military communiques. Broadcasts queued across every frequency, from order colonies to core worlds. Serenia gasped as the feedback hit her system. Her eyes blazed with light. Her veins sparked like starfire. The relay core vibrated violently. "Ryland," she whispered. "I can feel everything. The satellites, the ships, the people." He held her steady. "Stay with me?" I don't know if I can." Then the sky opened. Through the cracked tower windows, Ryland saw them: Perelian destroyers, Terran warships, even neutral crafts descending through the clouds like a fleet of judgment. The broadcast went live, across thousands of systems, across every channel. The truth began to spread. The data played out proof of collusion between Terran and Varelian elite councils. Manufactured battles, faked casualties. Wars waged not for survival, but for profit, for control. Screams echoed across command decks. Soldiers paused mid-march. Civilians stared at screens with wide, disbelieving eyes. And aboard every ship above Thera 7, weapons powered down. Then, the tower exploded with energy. Not from damage, but from Serenia herself. She collapsed to her knees, light seeping from her pores, her very body overloading. Raylan caught her, arms wrapping around her tightly. "I've got you." "You did it," he murmured. "I don't want to go," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I want more time." "You stay with me," he said, tears burning in his eyes. "Please." She smiled faintly. "I'm not dying. I'm changing." The air around her began to shimmer. Her body pulsed with radiance, like a sun contained within fragile skin. Her atoms were no longer stable, not failing, but ascending. The nanites had fused too deeply. She was becoming something new. Rylan held her tighter. "I don't care what you are. Just stay." She touched his chest. "You saved me. You gave me choice. Now let me save you." And then she leaned in forehead to forehead, and something passed between them. A wave of feeling, of memory, of light. His pain, her truth, their shared defiance. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a gift. With a flash that turned the sky to silver, she vanished, dissolved into stardust. The relay tower stood silent. Then, moments later, a new signal beamed outward. Not data, not war orders, but her, Serenia's voice echoed across space. "I was born to bleed for a lie, but I chose to bleed for truth. And in doing so, I became something greater." Across systems, her voice became a legend, a ghost, a beacon. Ryland stood alone now, atop the broken tower, looking up as the warships slowly peeled away into the clouds. Not a single shot fired. Not this time. A week later, when the first peace delegates arrived on Thera 7, they found him still there, silent, surrounded by a field of glowing dust that wouldn't fade. He never told them what she whispered at the end, but he carried it for the rest of his days. And across the stars, wherever her message was heard, people whispered a single truth. A human found her bleeding out, and instead of turning away, he made the galaxy feel again. And nothing was ever the same. End. Asterisk.